Again, I have it here. I haven't looked at this document in detail in a little while, but it is all here. It's also on the internet. Again, I'm not sure how funding drag shows abroad helps our national security interests.
Sure.
Which is what we're discussing. And remember, I brought that up, sir,
Let me yield
because
back.
I heard that they were not doing it. Here it is.
Sure, I'm going to take back my time. And just one more question. Was that rescinded by any chance, that grant?
This may have been pulled.
Wait. So we didn't spend $21,000 on 13 drag shows, 2 workshops, and a 2-minute video. So $1,000 on
So that's why you should not be upset that we're not funding drag shows. If they're not doing it, why is it a big deal to not fund it?
Right,
and if they're doing it, let's not fund it.
I'll take back my time.
What we just witnessed was a representative, Mark Pocan, destroy not just this Republican representative by himself or as an individual, but everything they stand for at this moment in time.
This is interesting. So you're worried about a grant that never occurred, which you could have told us up front. No, it was rescinded. It was rescinded. So anyway, the pride flags that you're so passionate about cost somewhere between, if you look online, $25 to $40. We are micromanaging, pedantically dealing with this budget at such a small level in order to make certain people in your base happy and in your caucus happy who've built a brand around hate. So in doing so, you're doing the silliness of determining whether $25 flags can come out of the appropriations budget. That is pedantic and crazy, quite honestly, that's what we're debating.
What we've watched and what we're witnessing is a Republican Party that has no platform beyond the markers and realms of hate.
We have a drought, genocide, child labor, child marriage, disease, famine, malnutrition, droughts, all sorts of things that we could be dealing with. And what we are dealing with is talking about a $25 flag or a rescinded grant.
Hate has defined this party for quite some time. But right now, what we're seeing is this blatant disrespect for human life. Anybody that's not a white person who claims to be American patriot that still at the same time can run up in the Capitol and get the support of this white, loving, supposedly patriotic party. Destroyed. And until Democrats, all Democrats show up just like this to defend LGBTQI and other marginalized people, this party will continue to try to use people as fundraising apparatus.
Now, let's just be honest among friends that this isn't for appropriations purposes. We're doing this because you're desperate to get the votes together, and you've got some folks who need this sort of stuff who are still not going to vote for it, by the way. I'm willing to bet any of you on whether or not we get the 12 bills done, by the way, through the floor completely. But let's just admit what we're doing. A rescinded grant, that would have been good information to share during your remarks. And a $25 flag is hardly the level that we should be debating here in the Appropriations Committee.
It's absolutely disgusting what this Republican was doing. Wow, they should have been debating all of the things and so much more that Pocan named: genocide, child labor, hunger, famine, houselessness. All of these issues should be discussed during appropriation, but $25 on a flag. Well, they lied about money being spent on a drag show.
And just for the record, in World War II, there was a show called This Is the Army. 113 performances on Broadway, raised $45,000 the first night for the Army Relief Fund, $10 million overall with, guess what? Soldiers in drag. And then they did a movie on this called This Is the Army, and guess who starred in it? Wait for it. Your friend, mine, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was in the movie This Is the Army, about the soldiers doing drag that raised $10 million for the Army Relief Fund. By the way, the highest grossing movie at the time, 3 times what Wizard of Oz had gotten at that point. Now, so for all the worries about, I think you said, the focus on foreign threats that we're dealing with, a pride flag is not a foreign threat. A drag show is not a foreign threat. Ronald Reagan is not a foreign threat. But having this kind of rhetoric on the floor so you can get people who want to pander and fundraise to certain aspects of your base is a threat to this democracy. So I just want to put it out there. I didn't plan on debating, but every time you put this stupid crap up that has nothing to do with appropriations, I'm going to stand up and say something.
Then Pocan to do the work to find out that Ronald Reagan, they're beloved Ronald Reagan. Well, this Republican Party in his current state probably don't love Ronald Reagan because they don't care about policies, even though Ronald Reagan would have fit the bill because he too was as racist as these people. Because a lot of y'all don't know, he left the Democratic Party to become a Republican when only and only when Democrats allow Black people to get seated in their party. So there's no beauty in Ronald Reagan, but he was in that drag show that raised money for the American military. Here's what I'll ask you. How much money has any elected Republican right now given from their budget to the military?
It's my normal practice to delete text messages.
So you delete them on an ongoing basis?
That's correct.
All right.
That is Homeland Security Inspector General Joseph Kafari. He was appointed by President Trump, and if you think Kafari is sleazy, just wait.
Mr. Goldman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Congressman Dan Goldman caught the Inspector General in a bold-faced lie when Kafari, who has a history of being unavailable, insisted he had reached out to Democrats.
Did I just hear you say that you offered to come and sit with members of the majority in the last Congress?
That's correct.
You did?
Yes.
And did you ever do that?
Yes.
With who?
Mr. Moskowitz,
No.
Ms. Porter.
Mr. Moskowitz was not in Congress last Congress.
I'm talking about this Congress.
I said last Congress. You said last Congress. He asked you last Congress, did you ever meet with the majority, Chairman Thompson, Chairman Maloney, anyone?
I did meet with Chairman Thompson, did not meet with Chairwoman Maloney.
Okay.
Well, at least Kufari eventually told the truth. The refusal to face reality at the start was a hallmark of this Republican-led House hearing about border security. Republicans, in an effort to smear the Biden administration, insist there are law enforcement shortages along the U.S.-Mexico border. But the Inspector General's report making that claim admits the data is unreliable.
Do you agree that you need reliable data to do an audit?
I believe we need reliable data. We asked for that reliable data from the department. They were unable to provide it to us.
Okay, so the answer is yes. I think we need reliable data to do an audit. And yet the data reliability of this report cannot be verified, and you actually say this in the report. So in other words, we simply do not know if the data you relied upon is sufficient to support any of the findings of this report. So essentially, this report is not verified and should not be acceptable to anyone to make any sort of conclusions.
Democratic Congressman Maxwell Frost noted that Kufari's office spent over $1 million trying to block an independent review of operations.
You've run away from any efforts to conduct oversight in your office, using taxpayer money, $1.4 million, to contract a law firm to run away from accountability on your part.
Florida Democratic Congressman Moskowitz, mentioned before, noted the border only seems to be a recurring political talking point for Republicans.
The border's been a problem for a long period of time because Congress has failed to pass comprehensive immigration reform. The same people who talk about the border, it's not like they've come up with solutions. They complain to get on Fox News every day. But it's not like we're having solutions.
And back to New York Democrat Dan Goldman. He hammered the GOP with this.
And when you hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle talk about all the problems with fentanyl and with gotaways and with smuggling, you know what they don't ever talk about? They don't ever talk about the tremendous exportation of American-made guns to Mexican cartels that give them the power and authority to control the fentanyl trafficking into this country. My colleague from Texas just listed a whole litany of things that are the problems we're having at the border and never mentions guns.
And that's because the gun industry arguably owns the Republican Party. And if the demand for U.S. guns is up, thanks in part to Mexican drug cartels, well, that's more money for the U.S. gun industry. Funny how that works. In any case, there are clearly a variety of problems and issues related to the U.S. border with Mexico, but if Republicans were truly serious about solving things and boosting security, They would bring out more credible hearing witnesses than the Trump-appointed Inspector General. His record at Homeland Security is beyond controversial. And if Joseph Kufari, with his imaginary time machine and his lies about his record, is the best the GOP can do, these hearings are nothing more than bad political theater.